Tonight, when the sun goes down, you are going to do something your ancient ancestors could never have imagined. You are going to turn on a light. The darkness will retreat instantly, effortlessly, completely, and you will not think about it for even half a second. But for almost all of human history, that was not an option. When the sun set, the world went dark. Not dim, not dusky. Dark. The kind of dark that swallows your hands in front of your face. The kind of dark that makes sound louder, and distance impossible to judge. That darkness was not an inconvenience for ancient humans. It was a reality they lived inside for tens of thousands of years, and what they did inside it will completely change how you understand yourself. Here is the question almost no one asks. What did ancient humans actually do at night? The obvious answer is sleep. And that is partly right. But sleep, it turns out, was only one piece of a much stranger and richer picture. The night was not empty. It was not just a gap between sunsets. For your ancestors, the hours after dark were some of the most socially and cognitively alive moments of their entire day. And the reason why will tell you something important about the person you are right now. Start with fire. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years living among the Jew/Hwansi Bushmen of southern Africa, one of the most carefully studied hunter-gatherer societies on the planet. In 2014, she published a landmark study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. What she found was this. During the day, conversation among hunter-gatherers was almost entirely practical. Who gathers what, where the animals were spotted, disputes over resources, logistics, survival talk. But at night, around the fire, everything changed. At night, 91% of conversations shifted to something else entirely. Stories, distant people, spiritual experiences, the behavior of others in the community, what Wiesner called firelight talk. The fire did not just provide warmth, it created a social stage. It extended the day into a space where something other than survival could happen. Something like imagination. Think about what that means for you, your need to tell stories, to hear stories, to wonder about people you have never met, to talk about things that have no immediate practical value. That impulse was not created by Netflix or books or the internet. It was shaped by tens of thousands of nights sitting in flickering orange light, listening to someone speak into the dark. But it goes deeper than storytelling. Researcher Jerome Siegel at UCLA studied the sleep patterns of three pre-industrial hunter-gatherer groups, the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tsimane of Bolivia. His findings, published in Current Biology in 2015, shattered one of the most common assumptions in modern sleep science. These groups did not fall asleep at sunset. They went to sleep on average 3 hours after dark, and they woke before sunrise. Their total sleep time averaged just 6.5 hours. Not 8, not 9. 6.5. So what were they doing in those 3 hours between darkness and sleep? They were together. The fire was burning. People were talking. Children were listening to adults explain the world. Elders were passing down knowledge that had no written form. It existed only in spoken language, only in memory, only in the act of one person telling another in the presence of firelight. This was school. This was therapy. This was culture being transmitted from one generation to the next. And here is the part that should genuinely stop you. That knowledge, those stories, those explanations of how the world worked and what it meant to be human, none of it could be written down. All of it lived in the nighttime conversation between people. If one generation failed to tell the next, it was gone. Forever. The night was not a pause in human civilization. The night was where human civilization was built. Now consider your own nights. The average adult in the modern world spends the hours between dinner and sleep largely alone, largely silent, largely staring at a screen. Not because this is natural, not because this is what your brain wants, but because the conditions that once made those hours rich and communal have been replaced by something that generates the same chemical rewards. Novelty, story, faces, voices, without requiring another human being to be physically present. Your brain cannot fully tell the difference. But something in you knows. There is a particular kind of loneliness that arrives at night. Not the loneliness of being without friends or family. The loneliness of being in a quiet room with a glowing rectangle when some older, deeper part of you is waiting for the fire to be lit and someone to begin talking. Psychologist Matthew Lieberman at UCLA has argued in his research on social neuroscience that the human brain defaults to social thinking during any moment of rest. When you are not actively focused on a task, your brain does not go blank. It starts thinking about other people, their motivations, their stories, what they might be feeling. This is not distraction. This is your brain doing exactly what it was shaped to do during thousands of years of firelight. The night was also a place of the sacred. Across virtually every ancient culture that archaeologists and anthropologists have studied, ritual and spiritual practice clustered after dark. Cave paintings, some of the oldest known evidence of symbolic human thought, were not made in daylight. They were made deep inside rock, in chambers where natural light never reached, by people carrying small stone lamps burning animal fat. Researchers like David Lewis Williams, a cognitive archaeologist at the University of the Witwatersrand, have proposed that altered states of consciousness, whether from exhaustion, rhythmic sound, fasting, or plant substances, were often deliberately induced in these dark spaces. The flickering of a small lamp in a sealed cave would have made the painted animals appear to move, to breathe, to live. The night was where ancient humans touched something they could not name. You still feel this. Not in caves, maybe, but in the particular quality of a conversation that only happens late at night, when the lights are low and the usual defenses are down, in the way music hits differently after midnight, in the way certain questions about death, about meaning, about what any of this is, only seem to surface when the world has gone quiet and dark around you. Your ancient ancestors were not less intelligent than you. They were not less curious. They were not less emotionally complex. They just had no electricity. And so the night for them was not something to be eliminated. It was something to be inhabited. There is one more thing about those ancient nights that you need to know. Historian A. Roger E. Kirch spent decades researching pre-industrial sleep patterns and published his findings in his book, At Day's Close. What he found was that for most of human history, people did not sleep in one long, continuous block. They slept in two separate segments, with a quiet waking period in between, sometimes an hour, sometimes longer. This period, which E. Kirch calls the watch or first waking, was not insomnia. It was normal. People used it to pray, to reflect, to have sex, to check on children, to visit neighbors, to think in a way that the busyness of daylight did not permit. Sleep researchers like Russell Foster at the University of Oxford have found that when modern humans are removed from artificial light entirely, many naturally return to this two-part sleep pattern within weeks. Your body remembers something your schedule has forgotten. So when you lie awake in the middle of the night, unable to fall back to sleep, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything and nothing, you are not broken. You are not anxious. You are not failing at sleep. You are doing something your ancestors did for thousands of years. You are inhabiting the night the way a human being was built to inhabit it. The world went dark tonight, just as it has for every night of human existence. Your ancestors would have gathered around a fire. Someone would have started talking. A story would have begun. And everyone present would have leaned in slightly because the darkness around the edges made the light at the center feel like the only real thing in the world. You turned on a light instead. The darkness retreated instantly, effortlessly, completely. And somewhere in the part of your brain that is still sitting around that fire, still waiting for someone to begin the story, you felt, just briefly, like something was missing.